So those are live. Cool, cool. All right, and let's get the recording going. Cool. All right, so it looks like that is all good to go. Okay, so welcome everyone to tonight's call. It is March 10th, Friday, March 10th. And today we're going to be talking about prospecting. So this is going to be somewhat of a more general training on this, some bullet points that I feel you guys, a lot of you guys are kind of missing, especially some of you guys here are relatively new. So this is something I really, really want to stress, okay? So I'm going to look at my notes real quick, pull those up. Okay, so prospecting. Now, with wholesaling, as you guys know, the proof of concept is already there, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Like, obviously, you're probably still going to have some doubts here and there, but you guys have seen this enough. It's no longer this obscure thing where maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, maybe someone got lucky or it's a once-off or something like that. Wholesaling absolutely works, so let's establish that. So basically what that means is that there are people out there, you know, myself and a lot of other wholesalers that you guys know. So that means we either know something that you don't know, and education is always going to be a part of that process, and that's what Wholesaling with Mike University is here for. That's what I'm here for, is to educate you guys. But it also shows you that there are people who are simply doing things that you are not doing. A lot of you guys are taking a lot of action, but it might be doing the wrong things, okay? Or maybe your priorities are incorrect. So for that reason, today we're going to be talking about prospecting. Prospecting is simply the act of proactively seeking out new business. You guys should have a pen and pad taking notes, but I want you to write down that prospecting is by far the most important thing that you need to do in your business. Now, that's not to say it's the only thing, obviously, right? There's a lot of people who maybe they're good at prospecting, but if they're missing the other pieces, things that we talk about, like your systems, your processes, your scripts, your negotiating and sales skills, your follow-up systems, right? Obviously, that stuff's very important, but if you don't have the leads coming in, if nothing is coming into your pipeline, then all that shit is irrelevant. Like, it really doesn't matter, okay? So you have to realize that prospecting is by far the most important thing that you guys need to focus on in your business right now. Now, this is not to be confused with lead generation. Oftentimes in this business specifically, when we talk about lead generation, we're talking about the specifics. So we're talking about things like text blasting, RVM, listed deals versus off-market deals, direct mail, Facebook ads, cold calling. All right, so those are all of the lead generation things, and that's going to be a little bit different for each of you, because some of you guys are working with budgets that can handle different types of marketing. Some of you guys are working with more time. Some of you guys have different skills, like the phone, for example. But that is, even if you guys are a little bit hesitant with cold calling, for example, that is a skill that you can absolutely learn. All right. Also, to my guys on Instagram, YouTube, we are in the middle of our group coaching call. Just figured I'd jump on and give you guys a sampling, let you guys ask a couple questions in here. So I'm going to keep you guys live for a little bit. And then for my group coaching students, we would be doing our Q&A at the end. And I'll turn the live stuff off so you guys can be nice and free. All right, so we talked about some of the different methodologies and lead generation tips, and that's kind of not what we're going to be talking about today. There are wholesalers who do all of those things I just mentioned, the RVMs, the text messages, the direct mail, and that's cool. Typically, those guys have a larger budget or they're working with a team. But there are also wholesalers who are very, very successful. I mean, multi-six-figure income earners who focus on only one of those techniques, right? So I know people who do their entire wholesaling business just wholesaling listed properties on the MLS, right? So often you guys get caught up in what's the right strategy, what's the right technique, that you are doing a little bit of everything, assuming that, okay, if I throw everything to the wall, something will stick eventually, or you're doing a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, and it's not enough volume to really gain you any traction and then to gain you any type of momentum, right? So the lead generation stuff is what's very specific, but prospecting is more this universal idea that can be applied to any of your lead generation techniques. Again, of course, you're still going to need the follow-up, you're still going to need your systems and things like that, but it all begins with here. And so for the next week moving forward, this is what I want you guys focusing on now. Some of you guys here are still in the setup phase. So that needs to be done with an absolute sense of urgency. You guys really need to get that setup stuff moving, because even though we have our metrics and our KPIs and things like that, there is still a level of randomness to this game, right? So any one day you take off, you might miss the deal that netted you 20K that you could have then put back into your business, that over time, exponentially, momentum, compounding, would have turned into another 5 deals, and the profits from each of those deals would have turned into another deal, etc., etc. All right, so the prospecting idea is universally applicable to everything. So I got my notes here. Again, this is not in a super specific order. Try to put the more important things first. But the first thing I want to talk about is that in order to make sure you do this, you have to identify as a successful wholesaler. Now, we spent some time on this last time talking about that identity level change. So that means, you're saying statements like, or not statements per se, but like, you are a successful wholesaler, which means I am the type of person that gets up every morning at 5 a.m. I'm the type of person that doesn't miss a day. I'm the type of person that makes my offers every single day. So you have to have that identity down. Now, one thing that I think will really help you, it's kind of a version of the exercise we did last time, is kind of a variation of this technique, which is you guys ever watch a good movie, any movie, right? You got your hero, and if there's no villain there, then there's no movie. There's no story. It's very boring. You don't have that hero's journey. And so what I'd like you guys to do, and what I think will help you with this, is to more or less create an avatar. And your avatar should be you. But this avatar is going to be your absolute nemesis or your competition, in the sense that this person does everything right. Everything that you should be doing, this person does, right? So when you're sitting on a couch eating potato chips, that motherfucker's in the gym, okay? So that's how you have to think about it. You always have to think like, hey, I'm competing with this guy. What would Mike do? Or give him a different name, whatever. What would this person do? What would this person do? And that should always be in your head, right? And you always need to be beating that person. The person that we have here is committed to prospecting every single day. It is by far, again, write this down, the most important thing that you guys need to be doing in your business right now. It's your senior activity every single day. Now, the next thing is to realize that it's not easy at first, right? It's not easy until it's easy. I do a lot of gym analogies, and I'm probably not going to stop. So it's the same thing. First time getting in a gym, you've never done a workout before, it's going to hurt. It's going to be painful. You're going to be sore. But if you stick with it, the results come. Your body gets better. You get more energy. You feel a lot better. The same thing's going to happen in your business. Every task that feels grueling to you right now, if you've made 90 cold calls and people just hang up on you or curse you out, that sucks. And it's very easy and very discouraging to quit at that point. But when you make 100 calls, right, and then you have a $20,000 check, now it's not that bad. Now you don't even remember the other 90 calls that you made. So it's going to be difficult at first, but you got to be relentless, and you have to realize that I have to do this. Okay, I got to get this done. It's going to be ugly. It's going to hurt. But once you accept that, then you don't have to waste so much time really thinking about it, right? Do I want to do this today? I don't feel like it. It doesn't matter what you feel like doing. It's about having the discipline to do it, whether you feel like it or not. So that's going to go into this whole idea of embracing the suck, right? So oftentimes you're going to hear things like, a lot of you guys are doing cold calling, for example. Cold calling is dead. Cold calling doesn't work. Guys, most of the time, and I'm not saying there's not innovative technologies that come out, because obviously there are, but the vast majority of the time, the whole pitch of something being easy, the Staples button, that was easy. That's to sell you something, right? Whether it's to sell you an idea or to sell you on a software or a product or something like that. And you really want to stay away from those. It's back to the old adage again. Nothing's always true all the time, but oftentimes when something sounds too good to be true, kind of is. And that's how so much of the fitness industry was built. It's like, hey man, you don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to work out. You don't have to eat right. Just take this pill and you will lose 20 pounds in the next week, right? And even as ridiculous as that sounds, those type of supplement companies, for example, are multi-million, if not billion-dollar companies, because people buy into that. So you really got to let that idea go and make the commitment to yourself that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to put in the work. And again, the work does get a lot easier in time. Okay. This kind of leads into the idea of thickening your skin. So in the materials and in previous lessons, we've talked about the idea of fear and rejection. I would highly recommend you guys go back through and watch the module in Wholesaling Mike University about fear specifically. It's so overlooked because oftentimes people are looking for the magic pill, the magic list, the magic hack, something like that, not realizing that so many of these things that they're dealing with, so many of these issues are internal, right? And so a lot of the stuff that I give you in that module specifically is about not just the ideas and the mentality and the mindset, which is important, but it's more so there are also tangible activities for you to do and to go through to more or less strengthen that muscle and to thicken your skin. I also have the recommendation, the book Rejection Proof. Remember the guy who purposefully went out for 100 days in a row and tried to get rejected every single day as kind of a social experiment. He recorded the whole experience, but the idea was to desensitize himself to any type of rejection. I read a book on this a while back. I don't even know which one. Might have been Fanatical Prospecting. Fantastic books where a lot of these ideas come from. But he was saying, you know, there were guys that would go off into war, right? Guys in Afghanistan, guys in Iraq, you know, guys who have seen horrific, horrible things in war, victims of attacks and all kinds of crazy stuff. And they came back. I think it might have been working real estate actually. And then the task was to make a cold call. And these guys have happened multiple times were so fearful. I mean, these are guys that have been to war, that have stared death in the face, and they couldn't pick up a phone and call somebody because the fear of that, I guess, rejection was so bad. So when you go back into your materials, there are resources in there and tangible exercises you can do. Some are on desensitization, some are on NLP training. You know, they're accountability partners, different things that you can do to proactively kind of desensitize yourself to that rejection, to that embarrassment, to that lack of confidence, maybe not feeling like you're, you know, not you're not well trained enough, or you don't have the skill set. All of that stuff is in there, so make sure that you guys watch that. Next thing I want to talk about is the idea of managing your expectations. Okay, so back to my gym analogies. Look, if you could go in the gym tomorrow and do 100 sit-ups and have a six-pack, man, you would have full gyms. Everybody would go to the gym, right? The reason people don't do that and why so many people quit and fail is because you don't have the immediate results, right? So you get really hyped up. You're like, yeah, I'm finally going to do this. I'm going to get in shape. You get in there, you do it, you know, a week later, 2 weeks later, you look in the mirror, you might look the same. You look in the mirror, you step on the scale, the number might be the same. And so for that reason, so many people get discouraged and they quit. And so that's why I want you guys to know that you have to recognize that there is a delay, right, in your results. So many people come to me, they get really hyped up. The first 30 days, they work really hard. They don't see the results, and then they just quit. So for that reason, you really need to detach yourself from the results temporarily. And you really need to focus on your process. And if you really want to make this thing work, I mean, I would say, I usually tell people, commit for 60 days. You get in that commitment for 60 days. The next 30 basically just comes pretty easy. But if you really commit for 90 days, I mean, I just don't see, it's impossible how this could not work for you. But you have to go into it with that expectation. Now, with that expectation, the reason I mentioned kind of that 90 days is because oftentimes you're going to find your results, they're not from what you did yesterday. They're from what you did about 90 days ago. So if you've ever had a really good month and you start looking at what happened, typically if you go back about 90 days, your activity, your levels of proactivity and making your offers and making your calls was probably very high. And what happens is a lot of people, they get real hyped, then nothing happens, they get discouraged, and then they stop doing the work. And then they say, oh, this stuff doesn't work. So you really want to kind of get away from that idea of instant gratification. And especially in this generation, and I'm subject to this as well, but I think the idea of social media has really just kind of kill this for us. And they've done studies where they were looking at attention spans in, I'm not sure if it was just children or adults and children, but essentially they say our attention span is about that of a goldfish. I think it's like 8 seconds or something like that. And that is largely due to platforms like Instagram and TikTok, and it's directly related to, it's not just like great marketers, I mean, they are, but it's also related to physically happening in your brain. So basically, when you're scrolling Instagram, TikTok, you get these little dopamine spikes, and that's why drugs are addictive, right? Because they get you in a zone where you're constantly getting this instant gratification over and over, and that has become the expectation. So another thing you can do is to really start to go on more or less a dopamine kind of cleanse, right? If you can reduce some of that stuff, reduce your social media, pull back from a lot of that stuff, that instant gratification, and make sure that your expectations are managed correctly, that's going to help you quite a bit as well. And that's also going to help you to, like we talked about, the easy button, to kind of avoid that shiny object syndrome. I mean, every time you're scrolling, oh, you're wholesaling, try this new thing, try this new method, try this. You're trying too much stuff, and it's just not going to work. The next thing we need to do is know our metrics and have a daily goal. Guys, I talk to you about this all the time, and it is so incredibly important because that is essentially the navigation system that's going to get you where you need to go. Now, we do like to start off with having an income goal. And so I want you guys always having something to move forward with. And so that's why when you get to the action plan, some of you guys haven't gotten there yet, but when you get there, there's going to be an exercise, there's a tab on your sheet for working out your income goal, right? And so you're going to have that big goal, that yearly goal. So you have that target in front of you. You know where you want to go, but you know exactly where you want to go. But sometimes, having that 1 year off goal, it can be a little bit much, right? Or it's easy to kind of lose focus. Or, the number, again, it's important. It's good to have out there, but it's like, okay, what do I do with this? Well, that's how you convert it into your daily goal. So let's say, for example, you want to make $120,000 a year. You're going to say to yourself, okay, $120 a year, that's going to be $10,000 a month. And it's like one deal, right? So what do I have to do to get one deal, right? And now this is where it's going to come to, well, what is the strategy that you're moving forward with? And again, remember, that's going to be based on your specific situation. So that's going to be your time, your market, your money. It's going to be a little bit different for everyone. Some of you guys are going to be, how many offers do I make on the MLS? Some of you guys are going to be, how many cold calls do I make? How much direct mail do I send, etc. Then what you do is you take that number and then you break it down per deal, right? So one deal a month. Let's say if you're doing cold calls, and let's say, just for the ease of the math, okay, I got to do 100 calls. I got to talk to 100 people, not 100 dials, to get this deal. And so, if I do that, well, 100 calls, that's so much. It's a lot of calls, right? Okay, well, let's break that down a little bit further. That's for the month. So let's say, okay, we want to work 5 days a week, right? For 4 weeks. So you divide 100 by 5. Now it's 20. You got to talk to 20 people a day. It's not really that, difficult, or it's not really that big of a number when you can break this thing down into kind of bite-sized steps, so to speak, or bite-sized goals. So right, you have to know your metrics, and there are exercises in the program to help you with that, to show you how to get there. My one-on-one guys, I have that stuff for you guys as well. Work that out with you. But once you know your daily goal, then that needs to go on your tracking sheet. And this is a huge problem I'm seeing in the program. You guys are not entering this stuff on your tracking sheet, okay? The tracking sheet is there for a number of reasons. One, it provides you with massive accountability. You'll see your trends. A lot of times people will say, okay, I'm doing this. They're even doing a follow-up system, but when I look at their sheet, there are a couple of things I look for. A lot of times I can see it instantly, right? I can see, the volume is off. You're not putting in enough offers. It's very easy to see. And you guys will notice the action plan is actually color, what's it called? There are conditional formulas in there, so it's color coded. So you just prop the number in. Okay, I made 5 offers today. I made 7 offers today, 10 offers today, and it'll turn green or red. And over the course of a month, 30 days, man, you guys are going to see if your spreadsheet's green, you're doing the right thing, you're close. If your spreadsheet is red, you're fucking up somewhere, okay? You're not doing what you need to do, and then you can kind of recalibrate your expectations. So now you can know, okay, I messed up, and so moving forward, this is what I have to do. It's also incredibly motivating. Now, I know I talk a lot of shit on motivation. We don't rely on it. We rely on discipline and identity. But At the same time, when you've been doing something consistently every single day, it kind of hurts because it hurts your who you are when you don't do it. So when you see that stuff happening every single day, I did it the last 10 days in a row, and then you miss a day, it can be, I don't want to say discouraging, but it's also like, oh man, my sheet looks ugly, man. I need to get back on this. And if you guys remember from the program, I stole that idea from Jerry Seinfeld, coming up in his comedy writing career. He's like, I don't care how, again, detaching from the results, if the joke is good or bad, but I'm gonna write a joke every single day, and every day I do, I'm gonna put a big red X on my calendar. And he came up with this concept of not breaking the chain. And so once when you have 2 X's, you break the chain, it's not a big deal, right? When you have 30 in a row, and you're like, let me see how long I keep this streak going, it's kind of exciting. And then from there, you just try to see how long you can go. And then what you do after that is you make sure that you try to beat yourself. So now, okay, I've been consistent doing 5 offers a day every day for the last week. Let me see if I can beat that. Can I do 6? Can I do 7? Can I do 10 every day? And again, same with working out. Every time I go to the gym, I don't just do random stuff, man. You got to write, okay, exactly what exercise I did, how many weights did I lift, and how many sets did I do, right? So if I go to the gym, I know exactly what I did last time. My mindset is, okay, I either got to put on heavier weight and beat the weight, or if I can't do that, I'm going to try and squeeze out one more rep. And that, with that progressive overload, that's how you get the results. That's how you get better. All right. So you have your metrics, you have your metrics, you put them in, you know what it takes to get a deal, right? You put it into your tracking sheet, you make sure you track it every day. Now, the tracking sheet, in addition to being your accountability partner, in addition to being very motivating, that also produces a data set. And that data set will tell you where you're falling short. And so my one-on-one students, if you guys are not doing this, I can't identify where you're messing up. Is it a volume issue? I don't know. Are you calling the right list? Is your skip tracing not good? If I see things like a lot of offers getting accepted, but they're not selling, your analysis is off. So it gives you a lot of information that way as well. With the tracking, and I've said this to a lot of my one-on-one guys, I want you to have this mentality that if it's not on the sheet, it did not happen. Okay, you guys have to get in the habit of putting this, not just for me, but for yourselves, and making sure that you're putting this stuff on your sheet. It needs to become a habit. It needs to become a habit the same way, before you go to bed at night, you brush your teeth, hopefully, right? It's just automatic. It happens that way, and it only takes 2 minutes of your time to do that. And so you guys have to go in and put it on your tracking sheet. Remember, your mindset, your mentality, if you're writing this down, something you should write is that if it's not on the sheet, it did not happen. Okay. With that said, the other thing that you need to be doing in terms of your prospecting is working out of a calendar. That's why I stress so much on the idea of scheduling, doing the reverse schedule to identify where your white space is, and then adjusting your daily activities accordingly. You want to not just be doing random stuff every day. I did that when I first started the business, and it does not work, okay? You guys should know exactly what you do. If I say, hey, what are you doing next Tuesday at 10 o'clock? You should know. Your calendar should be filled up in white space. Now, I'm not someone, again, you guys have heard me say this before, but I'm not someone who naturally has... was inclined to use a planner, or I was just keeping everything in my head. And I was like, I'm good, man. I can do this. I don't need a planner. I never used a planner in college. Just wasn't for me. I thought it was too difficult. And then I started seeing all these successful people, me and my mentors, stuff like that. They all have calendars. Then back to point one, we first said, the people doing stuff that you're not doing. And so you think like, I'll remember to do it. No, just get everything out of your head. And this is going to be important when we talk about follow-up in our next training session. But you want to get everything out of your head and everything into your calendar. On that note, you want to make sure that, I know everyone's schedule is a little bit different, but your most difficult task, or the thing that you hate to do the most, is typically the thing you need to do the most, right? So if you guys have heard of Brian Tracy's book, Eat That Frog, it's like if you get up in the morning, first thing you got to do is eat a frog. It's going to be probably the worst thing you do all day, right? But you get it out of the way. And so I'm going to encourage you guys, when you're setting up your schedules for one-on-one, you guys will be doing this process with me. But for you guys setting up your schedules, make sure that don't do the shit that's easiest. I used to do this actually. What I would say is I'd have a whole list of tasks to do. then I'd say, okay, well, if I just knock out these, will take me, they won't take me that long. This will be really quick. This will be really quick. And then at the end of the day, I'd knock out a bunch of stuff, and I'd feel like I was having a productive day. And the mindset was also, okay, once I get these things going, then I'll be in this mode of momentum where like it'll be easier to do other things. It'll be easier to make the cold calls, stuff like that. It rarely works out that way, right? If you guys use to-do lists, you always know, you do it, and then you always have some stuff left over. So you want to make sure that you're hitting the most important task every day, right? And that's going to be your prospecting. Again, whether it's making calls, making offers, whatever it is, that's what needs to happen. And we did a whole segment on scheduling. And I also showed you guys some of the tools that I use. So, I use a simple Google Calendar. I also use a program called Noseby, which is based on David Allen's Getting Things Done model for essentially getting organized and getting things done. I also use the Pomodoro app. It's a Pomodoro timer that tracks what you're working on, and it sends you a report. And when you guys are seeing that, man, you'll be so surprised at how much time you waste, and or how much time that you have available that you kind of didn't really know about, right? So those type of things help. We have that training. It's inside of Wholesaling Mike University, so make sure that you guys go back and look at that. Next is just this idea of just stop wasting time well, in general, but this is especially important when you're looking at cold calling, which I know many of you are doing right now. So the idea is this: sales, we talk a lot about sales. It's one of the most important skills I think you can have in life, okay? Sales skills are very important in our business and what we do. That's why I talk about it a lot. That's why I teach it a lot. But the really nice thing about wholesaling is it's less of a game of sales and more of a game of just screening, right? And finding people. Remember, we are not in the business of trying to convince people to sell us properties at discounted rates, at significantly discounted rates. We're essentially a pawn shop for real estate. Pawn shops do not go out and try to get people to sell them PlayStations at half price and wedding rings at half price, stuff like that. No, they understand there are people in distressed financial situations, maybe other situations also, but they're in distressed situations, and they have to. It's in their best interest to offer their property at a discount, to help them deal with whatever life issue they're dealing with, than it is to wait around to sell it at retail. So what that means is that when you guys are going through and let's say doing cold calling, for example, you do not need to be on the phone trying to convince everybody to sell to you. If someone is not a good prospect, have a nice day, keep it moving. Obviously, we're going to ask them if they know anyone else who's interested in selling. You want to check for the motivation. But I mean, if someone's definitely not interested, then just keep it moving, okay? We are in the business of screening. We are not in the business of trying to convince. All right? So with that, let me just check the chat really quickly, see if we have any questions on this stuff. You guys getting this? If you have questions on this stuff, drop that in the chat. And if you have questions about other stuff, drop it in the chat anyway, and we'll talk about that a little bit afterwards. So let's see, some other things that I have for you guys. This idea of, I guess, well, let me see if anyone's saying anything. This idea of getting really good at this, right? This idea of, Mike, how do I build confidence, for example, when I'm on the phone? The only way you get good at this, I give you guys a lot of training. There's a lot of role play we do, stuff like that. But the only way you get really, really good is just by doing it. It is the simplest answer, but that's the real thing. That's what it takes. And like we talked about last time, man, some of the best ways to do that is really play the movie forward. If you are in a situation you don't like right now, or you think you'd be better, play the movie forward. What's going to happen in the next year, in the next 2 years, if you keep doing the same shit that you've been doing, right? It's not going to be good, man. It's not going to be good. But let's say, okay, if I suck it up, right, and I just do the work for now, knowing that this is going to be the hardest part of this. It gets easier when you get to outsource, you get to use more software, and you get to use more tools, you get to pay for your marketing. It gets a lot easier. So the idea here is that you really, again, have to kind of embrace that suck, so to speak. And there are a lot of things that you can do. Again, go back. The chapter on fear is especially important, so make sure you guys do that. But also think about what are some of the things you can do proactively. So just for an example, when we talked about getting easily distracted, That means when you're prospecting, that should be not only the most important thing, but that needs to be your primary focus. So you need to cut off distractions. If you need to change your environment, get in an environment where you cannot be disturbed. You have to put a sign on your door. Put a sign on your door. You have to delete social media apps. Delete your social media apps. Put your phone in black and white mode. Put it on do not disturb mode. Whatever it takes to make sure that you guys are getting this stuff done. Don't get distracted with things that are not prospecting related, right? Especially for some of you guys very early on. You guys are focused on your branding, how your website looks, your business name, your logo. That's all cool stuff, man, but that's not what's going to get you there right now, okay? That's all bullshit. We don't need that. You don't even need your LLC. I do recommend having a time, but you don't need that to get started. All right, so make sure that you kind of avoid that. As much as I love creativity, right? Don't use it as an excuse to not get the work done, okay? To a degree, especially in the beginning, I'm asking you guys to have a little bit of faith. You got to have some blind faith making this work. Like I mentioned earlier, you have proof of concept. This is not just one guy talking anymore. There are hundreds of people with YouTube channels, and there's tons of people talking about this stuff. It's a great industry. You can't fake this stuff. You guys can see HUDs. Like, the proof is there. So we know that the business works. It's just a matter of having that faith that it is going to work for you. And then the only way to do this, even some of you guys who have been through, let's say, the core curriculum, Wholesaling with Mike University, it doesn't, when you finish the last video there, yes, this is live. When you finish the last video there, that doesn't mean that your training is done, okay? It's like medical school. You don't go to med school for 4 years and you jump out and you're some amazing surgeon, right? You get out and then you go through residency. So that's going to be your training as you're going through this. So, when you're making, let's say, cold calls, for example, you're not going to be amazing when you first get started. It's going to be that rough time. But the good thing is, the first probably 100 people you dial, they're not going to be deals anyway. So, it's your training, right? That's still a part of your education. And that's so that's something that you really need to embrace, and you're going to get a lot of feedback, and you're going to learn how to talk to people. So that's going to be really, really good for you, and something that you really just cannot avoid in your prospecting journey. Okay. So again, you got to master that self-discipline, the focus, the mental toughness. Again, it gets easier, and it gets a lot easier when you have those metrics that you need to be hitting every day, and then you're tracking those. Okay, so those are some of the most important things that you can do. All right, so guys, now we're gonna jump into some Q&A stuff. For those of you joining me, YouTube, Instagram, thanks for dropping by a bit of our session here. Benny, what's going on, man? Good to see you, brother. So yeah, I'm gonna cut these guys off so you guys can speak freely here, and let's get some questions going. All right. Let me turn these off. All right, guys. Catch you later. And let's turn that off. Boom.